Hey everybody, welcome back to the Saltworks podcast. I'm your host, Hallie Dye. Last week, if you listened to last week's episode, we did part 1 of Lindsay's story. That was not necessarily our intention when we started, but it quickly became evident that the Lord had plans to use 2 different parts of this story, and we're so glad he did. I cannot wait to share it with you. If you saw the time, I know you're thinking, this one's a good bit longer. It is every minute is packed with truth and kindness and God's grace. And it's a topic when we talk about things like infidelity or divorce in the church or miracles or God's redemption. All of those things are tied to theologies that we want to handle with care, we want to handle with wisdom, but we also want to pack with truth. And so today we dove into some things wanting to do that well. I can't wait to share this episode with you. I can't wait to share Lindsay's story and Collin's story with you. It's such a beautiful one, and she just did so well. So without further ado, I want to share this conversation with Lindsay with you. Well, welcome back to part 2 of your story.
Thanks. I think.
Didn't know it was going to be 2 parts when we started it last week.
I had no plans for that.
But I'm glad it is,
I know.
because I feel like we really got to go into some important things that, like, if you needed last week's story, can you imagine the encouragement of having walked through infertility or just seasons of waiting? And so I think that was a really beautiful thing that we got to pause and kind of go through, and talking about idols of comfort and control, which we'll hear more about,
of course,
I'm sure,
always.
And they might find themselves, in this conversation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But also, I think that, like, our intention for this part of your story was not to instruct.
Yeah.
Like, our intention is always, in anyone's story, is to share their story which shares God's glory. Like, I just came up with that on my own. That just came to me. Thank you.
It's true.
You could put it on a shirt.
We should.
So Emily Jones just ate that up wherever she heard it. She did.
Yes.
But like, that's always our intention at the Saltworks. Like, it is to share his story through our own and through our testimony and what he's done in our lives and what he is doing and all of those things. However, this one's a little different because there's a lot of really touchy, hard, heavy subjects that, like, are tied to theology in a lot of ways. And so you can do one of 2 things. You can just tell the story and not touch any of that, or you can pause and really dive into some of those areas. And I can't speak for you, but I mean, I think we landed on the same thing. It's like, I felt very convicted to really dive into those places as best we can.
Yeah.
Just because for the person who hears only this episode or is walking through this specific thing, and it can be different facets of this part of your story, it could be life-changing, and so I do think that it's really powerful. And so I also want to disclaim, I'm not hijacking Lindsay's story today. We are in agreement on pausing and going into some of these things that we had to work out together. Yeah. When this was real time.
Right.
But things that when I know a friend that's walking through something, when you've had people come to you, that we've learned to share. And so we will kind of pause and do that a little bit, and not to be disrespectful to your story, but just to come alongside someone who needs that. Yeah. Yeah. So
I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Or one good way. One good way to do it.
One good way.
One good way.
The good way we're going to do it.
The good way we're going to try.
So normally we ask, who is Lindsay Stagg? For anybody who's never listened. We did that to you last week.
We did.
So I won't make you do that again this week. You are...
I probably wouldn't be anywhere near the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've slept since then.
Yes.
But you're a wife, a mom. You are COO of the Saltworks.
Yeah.
Teacher for over a decade.
Yes.
And a member of the church,
Yeah.
a faithful believer. And so we ended last week with your story. For anybody who hasn't listened to part 1, like highly recommend, because there's a lot of strings we introduced.
Yeah,
there.
For sure. Good context.
Absolutely, yeah. But we ended there with like the miracle that came after infertility that we like to call Lily and Stagg,
Yes. Yeah.
and so like that's kind of where we landed. And I want to let me ask this first before we go into picking up where we left
Yeah.
off. This week is, as we've said, harder and heavier than not harder than last week. Last week had plenty of it's hard.
I'd say harder.
Okay, that's fair. You can say that. I can't say that. Yeah,
I would say harder.
You go on ahead. So
it's not as far removed. That's probably why it feels harder.
It's not as far removed. I do think it is a deeper wound.
Oh yeah.
I hate to say harder for somebody going through infertility, but I do think it's a heavier topic. But it's one we want to handle with as much honesty and care at the same time. Yeah. And it's going to be messy. We're going to have to say something and disclaim it. And there is a lot of sides to what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you first, why share this part of your story? Why not just leave it where it was or mention it in last week and not go into it the way we're doing today?
Yeah. I have a lot of answers for that, honestly. There's a lot of reasons why I would choose to willingly agree and also just dive into this and be like, okay, I'm going to. Because really, I have shared this part of my testimony with a small group at church about not quite a year. Well, almost a year ago. Yeah. It's been almost a year. But this is the first time that I'm like, really, this is a much broader platform, I guess, if you will. And so it's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But honestly, like the very first thing that comes to my mind about why is really honestly more of a question of like, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? Because of what God has done and because of his goodness in the midst of it, in the redemption that has come. Why would I not share that? And how could I not share that? I think I said last week that like as a believer, like we are not meant to be lakes, we are meant to be rivers. And I like that has like kind of transformed my thinking around sharing my testimony. And yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun to revisit the hard things. Yeah. And again, yes, like absolutely not downplaying the heart of infertility. When I was in the middle of infertility, that was the hardest thing I've walked through. Like that doesn't discredit that at all.
Right. Yeah. And we don't have to compare pain. Like that's the beautiful thing.
That is the best. Yeah. Yes. We do not compare pain. Like just because you're going, like, I can remember thinking that. Anyways, that's a rabbit trail, but why would I not? Like, why would I not share? And it's not fun to share the hard parts, but you can't share the glory of God without addressing some of those hard things, without the context of what's happened. And so
plus now when somebody asks, you can just send them this link.
Right. I don't have to actually like say, here, listen.
Yeah.
The point of this and for me, like, I think anytime any of us share a testimony, like I can't tell you how many times I've sat in that corner and encouraged someone who came on and was like, no, that was so good. That was so encouraging. And it feels different when you're sitting here. Like I get it a little differently now of like, is this going to be helpful? Like, Lord, but like, it isn't about what I have to say. It isn't about what I did or didn't do. It's about what the Lord did. And like the Lord is responsible for how this impacts someone else's life.
Yeah.
And like, for me, I can just remember thinking all along the way that if no good came from this, then like, what a miserable experience. Like any hard thing in our life. Like if the Lord cannot bring good or doesn't bring good, whatever that good looks like, because we have a pretty different definition. Like our good and Lord's good's not always the same. And we see those things in hindsight. But like why, then it was all for nothing. It was a waste and it was pain for pain's sake. But thank God that's not how the Lord works. And like, so for me, I'm going to share this because one, also, I know how important it was for me to have those couple of people who were in the church, who were trusted friends, who had walked through this before me.
Mm.
Like, invaluable to have those relationships and to know someone who just gets it.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get into this more about community and the different types and the friends and all the things. All of that is important, but there's just something different about someone who gets it, who has been there, who has walked through it, who just, you don't have to explain, who just understands. And not to say that someone who hasn't can't do those things, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard because I think the knee jerk is like, well, no, I don't want to talk about those things, because I think from a worldly perspective, it's, you know, we're not here. Like, number one, of course, and for me too, like, this is really important. Like, I'm not here to shame Collin. Like, Collin knows what we're doing. He knows what we're talking
set
about.
Up our mics
He set everything up today. He edited all of this. So like,
yeah,
he
if you're
knows.
hearing it right now, it passed through his hands.
It did. And so like, that isn't the goal.
Yeah. And I asked him last week, I don't know if I told you this. I was like, are you good with all this?
Yeah.
Because I think you were in your office and he was sitting up in here. And he was like, yes, like I don't love parts of it because I'm not proud, but also like he believes in the same thing as
he does.
What
we had many conversations. And I mean, there were many times that when we first started talking about this and started praying about, okay, is it time for me to share my testimony, that I was like, hey, I'm not going to do this if you're not ready. Like, or if you're not okay with it, or there's any part of you that's like, you know, so, you know, yes, that's not the point of this. It's not to sit here and air all the details. I mean, I'm sure
if this is where the episode ends, then he didn't
change his mind.
We hope you have a good week on Saltworks.
Yeah. So yeah, like that's what it's not. Like, that's not the point of this episode. Really the point of this episode and why I feel strongly about sharing this is, number one, like, if what I've walked through, what we've walked through can help one person, one marriage, then it's like, then what the Lord, I'm going to choose my words wisely, like, to say it's worth it. Like, no, it's not. I would never choose to do that again, obviously, you know, but like, what the Lord has been faithful in the midst of that. And if it can help or encourage or point one person to Jesus, which is ultimately what you need, then why wouldn't I? I mean, so.
Yeah, I love that. So good. We ended last week with y'all having a win, obviously, you know, and we touched on this in ending of, you know, expectations. Like, just because you've walked through infertility doesn't mean that you view every part of motherhood as a cakewalk. Like, you know, that's not true or real, you know.
Right.
And so just being able to hold like empathy and understanding for all of those things, and for anybody that's in that place, like, highly recommend going back to listen to that. But that's where we ended. And so we were kind of in the, like, the beauty and the hard, the miracle and the mess. So can you just kind of tell us like what life looked like following that? And
so I mean, so again, context of like just ultimately being someone, I think, who had comfort and control in a place it never should have been. I mean, I would say, like, I can say confidently now, like, I can look back and see that those were idols in my life, that I just was clueless, that I mean, I say clueless, like, I don't know that I fully realized, you know, like, how much, like, I depended on that or depended on myself. And so, you know, newborn stage for me was a struggle. Like, it was a struggle. And I mean, I think probably recognized like my struggle with the need for comfort and control. Obviously, there's no way to avoid that.
That's a hard season, though, to totally see within, because there's so much of it that's wrapped up in circumstances. You're like, is this just a season?
Yeah.
Or do I need to work through things?
Yes.
And the answer to that is yes to both.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, because I mean, when it's your first, and like, I think I said this last week, that I will stand by this, that like, for me, in my experience, transitioning from no kids to one kid was the hardest, because you have zero context. Like, people can prepare you and tell you all kinds of things that, yes, they are helpful things, but like you just don't have a reference, and you do not have a reference for what it's like to be a parent or to have a tiny human that you're responsible for.
Yeah.
And so, like, even still, like, I still feel that way. Now I have another one. So, like, well, I guess we'll TBD, but
Yeah.
I don't think that that's going to shift.
Yeah.
And so the first year, like you said, you don't know, is this a season? Like, people tell you it's going to end, but you're like, but when? And I don't believe you. Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like it's going to end. Um, and so, like, I think one, it was a hard transition.
Yeah.
It was one that I didn't talk about. Like, I mean, maybe you and I, who knows? I can't remember that
I
far
mean,
back.
we did,
Maybe,
but
I'm
you
sure
were,
we
yeah.
did. But
Yeah.
like when you're in the first year of
Mhm.
like postpartum, all things, like you just like, I don't know. I don't
I know.
remember anything.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know. But I know I did not open up probably near as much as I should have about like,
Mhm.
man, this is really hard. And like, man, I'm struggling with guilt, or, just all of that.
Mhm.
And I want to say this too, like, in this whole season of time, like, Colin and I are active members in our church. Like, we
Mhm.
are still actively involved with all sorts of things. And I don't think I
Had a
will
solid friend group, had a solid
have a,
community, like
yes,
not living in
absolutely.
isolation.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and so I think there is a degree, you don't know what you don't know
Yeah.
at the end of the day. That's where I'll just land on a lot of
Mhm.
things. And like functioning, like we were functioning fine, like
Mhm.
not like we're just totally,
Mhm.
falling apart, but like not functioning probably as well as we normally do,
Mhm.
especially in the first year of like her life,
Yeah.
just of just not realizing how hard this was going to be, and not realizing how, like, and as a mom, like just having no ability to really anticipate like how much weight you feel, I think, because from me and my self dependency, I can look back and I do know that I probably didn't pull the Lord into motherhood as well as
Mhm.
I should have or could
Most of us
have, which
don't.
we don't. I
Yeah.
mean, still to this day,
Yeah.
um, because I guess you're survive. Like, I don't know, like there just feels like in that first season of motherhood, like when you're the first year of life as a new mom, like it feels like the world depends on you, and
Yeah.
like that's heavy. It doesn't
Yeah.
in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
and it does in a lot of ways. And so,
Well,
like,
I can just think back to like different seasons of marriage with us, like with having children. Like, even if I 100% chose to be the parent that stayed at home, like, for us, and I'm not speaking for y'all, like, there's so much room for resentment
oh,
because your
absolutely,
life's just not as affected as
yeah,
mine.
yeah,
Like,
it
there's
is.
that.
It's just different.
And I think that's a super common
Yes,
pitfall. Even if you love motherhood and you're so
yes,
grateful and you would pick it over any other job, there are just little pockets that can
yeah,
absorb resentment and
yes,
hold them if you don't search that out,
yes,
because it does feel like, because we've made this choice, I have all these other choices taken from me and you don't.
yeah,
That's not true. I mean, it can be true in some marriages, but that's not generally true, but
yeah,
it can absolutely feel that way. And
yes.
um I think
And
that
that
can be
is not
common.
something that people talk about.
It's not. Yeah.
It's really not. Um, and I'm not. I will not ever be someone who sits here and is like, oh, I never had anyone say that to me, because I'm not.
Mhm.
I wouldn't remember. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if I'd remember if I did. But it's not. I don't like. That's not part of the conversation. The
Mhm.
conversations you have is, okay, we're waking up at this time now. Like, it's all the logistical,
I was gonna
practical,
say,
which
like,
is important and necessary. Like, but
it's
those are the kinds of conversations I was having with my friends. Like, hey, I don't know what's happening right now. What do I do?
yeah. Well, and like, let's be honest, when you're in survival mode and it is like all of these like physical tasks someone has to do,
Yeah.
like, you can hear information
Oh,
that's true, but it's not pertinent information to
no.
what
To
you need
survive.
for
No.
survival right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that there's also a, like, if I had a baby today, which I'm not, by the way, but
Oh, come
if,
on.
yeah, well, no, but um but if I did, I would still have to work through all that. Like, you don't get to a place where you don't feel
Yeah.
flesh anymore. You
Oh
just
gosh,
are
no.
out of
Yeah.
that season,
Yeah.
like, and there's new things I'm working through refinement
Yes.
because I have older kids and less control than
Yes. Yes.
when it felt like I didn't have
Right.
control.
So what you're saying is
So on
yeah.
you. Anyways,
Yeah.
anyways, that's the end. So, good luck. Um, anyway, all that to say, common pitfalls of
Yeah.
marriage. I don't think I don't think that you can study your way out of never feeling
Uh-uh.
those. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage.
No.
There's no such thing as healthy in all moments all the time. I
Right.
don't care who you are,
No.
how long you've been married. I don't care if you're a marriage counselor. You have things
Yes.
you have to work through in all seasons. Like
Yes.
that, because we're constantly growing and changing, and this person's struggling with depression, this person has
Yeah.
anxiety, this person has a physical element that keeps them
Right.
from it. I mean, like, there are all kinds of things that are going to happen, and that's a part of marriage. And
Yeah.
so I ask you those things, and I don't want to cut you off if you have more to
No,
say,
that's pretty much it.
but I ask you those things to set the scene of where y'all are.
Yeah.
And now I want to flip to one of our disclaimers to say there's never cause and effect
No.
when infidelity is the case. So,
Right.
can you expound on that? And I will too, but I'd love for you to speak to the person that's like, what do you mean by that? And how can that not be?
Yeah. Um, so I think, let me think how to start that. But I think when you find yourself in a situation where you have a spouse that has not been faithful, um, especially for somebody who has always struggled with control
Mhm.
and you know, I think the knee jerk is to immediately take responsibility somehow or to feel like this is my fault. What did I do? How did I like what did I not do? Um I I don't know that there's anyone who would have walked through this that somewhere along the way that thought does not cross your mind.
Mhm.
And I had to do a lot of like counseling and work on not like internalizing that
Yeah.
because it can feel that way. And um, I think the thing that we get wrong, and I guess when I say we get wrong, like whether that's society, the church, even to some degree, it's that this idea, and like we'll get into this a little bit more, but it's this idea that like if I don't XYZ,
Mhm.
then my spouse is going to be unfaithful.
Yeah.
And you can fill in the blank with a lot of things.
If they don't get it at home, they're going to find it somewhere else. I mean, we
Oh,
hear
oh,
statements like that a lot.
yes. Um, and so I think it's a message that is not like it's not well communicated. And I think the responsibility in a lot
Mhm.
of those situations, um, people have this misconception
Mhm.
that it is dependent on the other person, on the
Yeah.
spouse. And I think what I would like to say, as far as like, let's talk about what that actually looks like, is that no, it's not your responsibility. And it is not your fault. Like, it's not a cause and effect. It's not, okay, well, because I struggle with control, because the first year of parenting and motherhood and fatherhood was hard. This is why this happened. No, at the end of the day, it happened because of a hardened heart.
Yes.
And it happened because of where Colin's heart was with the Lord,
Yeah.
or lack thereof, I guess. However, so like this is super important to me, and like I
Mhm.
do feel very strongly about this, and I think it's a fine line. It's a fine line of like understanding of like, no, I am not responsible for his actions. I have zero control over what another person does,
Mhm.
and I think we like to think that we do.
Mhm.
And coming from someone who
If that's
sort
your
of
narrative
felt
you've
like
been
that,
living
yeah, like
in,
kind of felt like, oh
yeah.
yeah, I do have an effect or I do have whatever. And so
Mhm.
it's really hard whenever it's like, okay,
Mhm.
what did I, it's, anyways. So it's not cause and effect. If you are the spouse of someone who has been unfaithful, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Like that person, your spouse made a choice and they chose to step out of the marriage.
Yeah.
They chose to step into sin. And that is not contingent upon
Mhm.
what you do or don't do.
Yeah.
However, I do want to say this because I think this is the part, and maybe this is what's gotten misconstrued or
Mhm.
like disoriented over the course of time, all of time, who knows, is that we all bring dysfunction into
Mhm.
every relationship. We are humans and we are by nature sinful.
Yeah.
We are fallen people that are not perfect, that are not good. Our nature is not good. Our flesh is not good. And so we all bring levels of dysfunction into marriage,
Yeah.
into every relationship that we have. And so it's not to say that, oh, you're 100% um I don't know, like blameless on anything or fault, not blameless. I don't want to say that. That feels like a you're not faultless in the dynamic of your marriage and like
Right.
where there are some things, but like the choice to be unfaithful and to step outside is not because of those things. And like
Right.
that's what we're going to kind of talk, I think, a little bit more about in a second,
I
of
think
just the
that's an
covenant of marriage. Like,
excellent way to say that. Like, if you want to look at cause and effect of any marriage at any given point, like if there is a distance, if there is
yeah,
dissension, if there is division, like there is a cause that
yes,
came from one or both sides in
right,
that specific instance. And that is cause and effect of like,
yes,
well, we weren't communicating well, we
yeah,
whatever, I chose not to invest here, whatever that looks like. And usually it's not purposeful in any
no,
shape, form, or
right,
fashion.
right,
But like there is a cause and the effect is where disconnection.
yeah,
Like, but the effect is not you have license to step outside of the
right,
marriage. And so, one of the things I listened in preparation of like really wanting to handle these things well, and there still gonna be things that I misstate or
well,
uh, don't understand fully, and I'll be figuring it out for the rest of my life. But I did listen to a Tim Keller sermon that was very, very helpful, very, very um, just like it was packed with a lot of just truth. And he like says, and I'll link this sermon. It's an older sermon. You can tell by like the sound quality, but it is just turn it up, listen to it.
yeah,
It's just so good. And he says like I can't go into all of these things well because I need to pack all of these like subjects together. And so I think it's like marriage, divorce, and singleness, which are
yeah,
like, how can you cover all of that in
right,
35 minutes?
right,
And he's like, I can't, but I'm going to give you these succinct things.
yeah,
I have to put these together because of this teaching. And so, like, he talks about that, but he talks about like the idea of covenant. And he said that um, when he used to do weddings, that he never recommended this, but he noticed that the couples that said they wanted to write their own vows would like always get it wrong
yeah,
because the vows, as beautiful as they were, and like not that they're not true, were all about how they felt right now.
yeah.
And I'd like to scroll to this because let's see if I have it.
And while she's finding that, I would highly recommend Tim Keller's book, The Meaning of Marriage, which these podcasts or these sermons that he did a sermon series on marriage. And that's kind of what sparked the whole book. Him and his wife wrote the book, The Meaning of Marriage, together. Highly recommend.
Yeah. So it says a marriage covenant says nothing about the present.
Yeah.
You aren't declaring your present love, you're making a vow about your future love. How can you possibly make a vow about your future love not knowing what will happen to you, what your spouse will choose? How can you possibly make a covenant with another person about
Mm,
the future when you don't know what's going to transpire because you're saying this is what I will do regardless of what you will do?
mm,
It's not a promise, it's a covenant.
yeah.
I'll do my part. It's not a contract. A contract is if you uphold XYZ, I'll do ABC.
Hmm.
A covenant is I'm going to do this in the future, regardless of what you do. And so everyone's responsible in a covenant for their own side.
Yeah.
And the thing about marriage that makes it so important and so sacred is unlike, and this is a point that Tim Keller made, unlike schools and even small groups and a lot of other things that we've created with great intentions, marriage is an institute that was designed by God
Hmm.
to mirror the gospel and bring companionship. And in its essence, not in its function, but in its essence, what makes marriage marriage is cleaving.
Mm-hmm.
You forsake everything else and everyone else for this relationship, and what often leads to issues in marriage, regardless of what comes
Yeah.
out of that, um, it's distractions, it's busyness, it's failing to be transparent with what you need. And I wanted to pause here because as we're dancing around all of these things, I know some people might be thinking, well, what about 1 Corinthians 7?
Yeah.
Um, and so it says, let's see. But because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer, but then come together again, so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. I want to point out two things in that passage. One is explicitly stated and one isn't, but is still true. Okay, the first that is clearly stated is so that Satan may not tempt you. That does not give the offender the license to fall to temptation. It does say you together, like you can make it easier to withstand temptation.
Right.
The second part of that that's not clearly stated is that's assuming you know your spouse's needs.
Mm-hmm.
That's assuming that the other person has done the emotional, personal work of being transparent and vulnerable before you.
Right.
And we say this all the time in regards to submission, and submission is both ways. And we're not getting into that today, but that's one rabbit hole we will be leaving
Yes.
untouched.
Yes.
But it goes both ways. But we hear all the time, like, if a man is willing to lay down his life and he's living that way and he's living sacrificially, like a sacrificial love to cherish his wife, it's much easier to respect and submit. And like that's true. That holds true. Like that is much easier. There can be other factors regarding that, and counseling's great. But so is true that like if you have a spouse, man or woman, that is vulnerable with you, that is honest about what they need and what they're feeling and where they are and what they're struggling with, like it is much easier to approach that person with intimacy in all regards, physical, emotional, everything in between. And so like when you read things like that, like Paul's being cut and dry about a specific and like specific culture in a specific situation that we don't have time to dive into. But even if you want to take that and apply it to any situation and any culture, like that is assuming that you know those things about your spouse and they're being honest with you. So like
And
there's still responsibility on receiving those needs.
For sure. And I think it's like, this is probably its own rabbit hole too a little bit, but I do think this is also important. And it's also assuming you know your needs and you know how to communicate those, because I don't think we do that well.
No, we don't.
Insert go to counseling.
Yes, we're going to say that a lot of times.
Like go to counseling. Like
not because it's a replace for God.
It's not a replacement for God.
Tool that
but it
God
is
uses.
Yes, like it is absolutely not a replacement. But I think that there are solid Christian counselors. And that are they're not going to leave God out of the equation. Mm-hmm. And like that is so important. Because there are things now that I can communicate that I know without a shadow of a doubt I would have never been able to communicate before. I felt certain things, but I promise you,
I acted out of them before
for sure. But communicate them vulnerably, not a chance. Like not a chance. So that goes both ways. Mm-hmm. Like in any marriage, that goes both ways. In any relationship, being able to do that.
Okay, look back at the garden where we're talking about leaving and cleaving to begin with. Therefore, a man leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his own wife. Like, that's the essence of marriage. That's you are one. Like, in everything, you are one. Forsaking everything else to a degree because it's a priority. Why is it a priority? Because it's an institute that the Lord designed. It's powerful. It's powerful for your good and for your bad. Like, it's going to affect you one way or the other. And he talks about that. But when you go back to the garden and you look at Adam and Eve and you look at they're physically naked in front of each other, like it is a physical picture of just like being 100% vulnerable It's just us two in this garden. And it's the first poetic thing in the Bible is, alas, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. And I loved this, and You Are a Theologian by J.T. English and Jen Wilkin. When they talk, and I can't remember like what the theology, like what chapter it was that this fell under, but they talked about like we talk, and this is the Hallie Dye version. We talk about genders and gender differences so much in the church, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, because there are differences in roles and in design.
Yeah.
But sometimes we give gender too much emphasis. Sometimes we give gender too many roles that don't actually exist in scripture. And what I loved about that book is, this is where I'm switching back to their words, not mine. Like, they pointed out that before any of the differences were noted, and he noticed them,
Right.
We know he noticed them, but he doesn't say, look how different we are. He says, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Like, before he notices any differences, which often come up in marriage, he notices their likeness.
Yeah.
The first thing that he exclaims is the sameness that they have, the companionship. And that's the purpose of marriage.
Yeah.
The essence is you cleave, you're one. The purpose is companionship. And he meant for it to be opposite genders that oppose and complement at the same time. Like, if it's just bending to your will,
right,
and there's no refinement and there's no opposition, it's not a marriage.
Right.
You haven't married two things together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you've legally married a chameleon, like, that's not the same thing. And so I say all that to say, like, I know that sounds like we're going down a rabbit hole, but I think that does set up a lot of what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
With care.
Yeah.
To kind of cover some of that ground.
Yeah.
I do think we covered a lot.
We did.
Okay. So going back to storyline.
Yeah.
You're in a place every marriage gets to.
Yes.
You're exhausted. You're balancing motherhood and teaching. He's starting a new business. You're busy. You've got kids. Lots of things going on. Take us through what happens next.
Yeah. So John Michael had not been born yet, but I was pregnant with him. It took a year and a half, roughly, to get pregnant with him. We did have, we had like a chemical pregnancy in between that. Right around, I feel like it was right around Lillian's first birthday, which was kind of a shock because, again, like, we just, anyways.
Yeah.
But that was that. And it was probably not until the spring. So yeah, it was a good year and a half, maybe a little longer, before we were pregnant with John Michael. And, like, we had done some marriage counseling, like we had gone a few times. And looking back, I don't know how to tell you other than bringing the Lord into it from the very get-go, which, like, I don't know that I did totally. But there is a difference in good counseling and not so great counseling. I wouldn't say we had a bad counselor, but, like, it's not what we needed. It was,
I think, like, maybe some of this stuff upheld some of those false narratives that we just dismantled.
Yes. Yes. And so I just honestly feel like wasn't really getting to the root of what was going on. It was more of like, let's look at the symptoms and just address up here, but not like, let's dig deeper, essentially. And we didn't do that for long. And so anyways, John Michael was born in January. And honestly, like, in all of that time frame, like, things were like, I can look back and I'm like, yeah, we had some struggles. And I think we were aware enough to have wanted to go to counseling, maybe the year before he was born, somewhere in that. I honestly don't even remember when that was. It's like we knew we were struggling with things. But just, I don't think we really knew what to do with that or how to,
Yeah.
and like on
Well,
the
life doesn't
surface, like
stop.
life doesn't stop, and like day to day, like we're functioning like we always do, like we're fine. And
Mhm.
100% from the outside looking in, you wouldn't really know like anything was going on. And it's not like it's not like things were bad. Like I
Mhm.
don't know, like I don't know how to
Yeah.
paint that picture. Like we were fine,
Yeah.
you
Should
know?
put that in air quotes for anyone listening.
Yes. I forget. We were fine.
Yeah.
And so had our struggles,
Mhm.
felt I mean, like I can remember knowing like, okay, this is just marital stuff, but like how do we work through this? And like how like we just
Yeah.
wouldn't see eye to eye sometimes, and it felt like I'm not being heard because I back to me probably not communicating
Yeah.
very well.
Mhm.
Um for sure not vulnerably, probably more aggressively. Uh but anyways, and so, you know, that's just where we were. I
Yeah.
mean, generally speaking. And so John Michael was born. Um, and then in March, um, found out that he had been having an affair. And I don't think that will ever get easier to say.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, like that. You want to talk about uh world turned upside down, like that was a shock. Like it was a shock. Um because like I said, I knew that we were having our issues, but
Mhm.
like really just never really believed like that was what was the problem.
Yeah.
Or never, I think I had my thoughts along the way of like certain things, but like w- that's not a road you choose to go down. I don't think any of
It
us,
also just doesn't seem
it's
real,
no, no,
or
it doesn't.
possible.
And I don't think I mean, there is no there's no preparation for that. There's no
Mhm.
preparation for that.
Yeah.
And so worst day in history of
Yeah.
my life,
Yeah.
worst day in history. And you actually, I think, were the first person I called because I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember much about that conversation. I just remember you saying, "Hey, y'all get here. Like y'all come here."
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and that felt crazy to me.
okay. I want to back up in true vulnerability and transparency if we really want to go there. And I think it's only fair that I do. Um, but I was having a colonoscopy the next day.
I do. Yeah.
You called me. So I've been on only liquids for over 24
Yes.
hours and now I'm doing the cleanse.
Yes.
So actually, just to be honest, was in the bathroom
I don't,
when you called me.
know.
So like the fact that and like as funny as that is, like I mean people are like, I remember where I was. I do remember where I was. Um but but I say that to say you it was one of those things where I would have dropped everything to come to you
Right.
had I been physically able
Right.
to do that. But being that I couldn't, and the next day had the colonoscopy, like I
Yeah.
can't come then either. Um, I called. I don't know why I felt this way. I'm sure I saw it wise trusted counsel, but I just remember feeling like I think you need to come here.
Yeah.
And I think like as your friend, I could have sang about your praises, but I also know that like your tendency is to maintain. Like
Oh.
let's keep our structure, let's keep routine, and that
Oh, because I'm pretty sure I had an argument with you of like, hey, I can't.
yeah,
Like, I just started back work. Like, I can't.
yeah. And like honestly, like that's your gift too. Like that's how. By the way, y'all, that's how the Saltworks does functioning is because Lindsay's good at that. But like I knew that about you, and like somewhere deep down, without knowing why, I knew you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You can't just respond by doing nothing. Can
Yeah.
you just come here for the weekend
Yeah.
and then let's go from there? So that was kind of like the thinking. And then that turned into like I set up a meeting with some wise counsel
Yeah.
with your permission.
Yeah.
And so went with you just so I could take John Michael, who was 6 weeks old, like in
Yeah.
case you're trying to talk and he's crying, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, just all the newborn things. And you received some counsel that day that I'd really like to go into because it's counterintuitive to what most people would assume the church would tell you to do,
Yeah.
but I actually do think it's right
Yeah.
for very good reasons. And so can you, and I know you can't remember the meeting because
Oh gosh, no.
you're in newborn season and in shock, but
Yes.
can you just share with us a little bit about what that
Yeah.
looked like?
So I was told, obviously within my capacity and ability to read, and I don't even know who the author is. Maybe
James
you do.
Dobson, I
James
think.
Dobson. Okay. Um, a book called Love Must Be Tough. And essentially, I'm going to do the best I can. You're going to have to help me out on this part
Yeah.
because I mean, the gist was basically like, I think we talked about this a little bit that, everybody wants to say, oh, you just love them through it. You love them through it. Well, yes and no. Because yeah, love is
Goal.
the goal. But
And should be the motivation.
it should be the motivation, yes. But there at that point in time was nothing that I could have done to, like, I wasn't gonna fix that. Like, I wasn't gonna fix
Yeah.
what was going on in Colin's heart. Like, that's not my responsibility. It's out of my control. And like at that point in time, like we're talking about like, okay, well, the covenant has been broken.
Mhm.
And there's a line of respect that's been breached, all kinds of things.
Mhm.
And
Not just
so
to you, but
not just
also to the covenant. Yeah.
absolutely. And so the whole basically the gist of like the book and the love must be tough is that like in essence like you almost have to create a crisis
In response to
in
the crisis,
response
they've,
to
yeah.
a crisis that has already been created.
Yeah.
um and so yeah, I don't know. I mean that's not easy. It's not easy at the moment.
It's not easy. And I like when you say hold the line, like for y'all,
Yeah.
that looked like you staying in Monroe,
Yes.
which was hard in
Yeah.
1,000 different directions. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot, like you had a job that you loved
Yeah.
and your friendships and
Right.
family there. Like, I mean, there was a lot
Yeah.
that a house that you loved, like a lot of
Yeah.
things that you left to stay. I don't know what the plan was. I don't know if it was like, I don't think it was forever. You know what I mean? Like it
Oh
was just
no.
like,
Yeah.
indefinitely.
Yeah.
Um, but like for you, like whatever that line is, and obviously this decision,
Right.
the premise is this: the decision has to be with the components and pieces your story
Oh
holds,
yeah.
and
It's
that
not
was
a
in the
yeah.
presence of wise counsel. So
Yeah.
it's not a one size fits all
No.
of what this looks like, but the idea is to hold that line of respect. This person does not respect you, and they've
Right.
stepped outside of the marriage, and
Right.
so like you set a line of respect of whatever that looks like, and sometimes, most often, I think it looks like them having to leave the home. For you, it was different,
Yeah.
but it looks like a lot of times separation, which sounds very counterintuitive
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
what the church would say because the ultimate goal is reconciliation.
Right.
But the idea is you've got to hold this line of respect. And I think that we can go into some reasons why it can be so hard to do this. But I think one of the reasons can be is like, if I set this line, they're just going to go somewhere else. Like they already don't respect me. If that's the case, you didn't
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
that's what they wanted to do. Like you didn't have that and you weren't going to fix it
Right.
another way. But sometimes it is kind of a wake up call because I can say this from someone on the outside. When you know someone personally that is having or has had an affair, it's almost like an addiction.
Yeah.
It like alters people. Like
Yes.
it's you can see the difference.
Yes. Well, and there's like actual research that it does alter your brain.
Yeah, no, it does. And like you might not be able to put words to that or know the scientific things that back it up, but like you can see it. Like
Yeah.
this person is not like I don't recognize
Yeah.
this, this person right now. And so like it's a when you create a crisis, it's like basically like saying if you don't stop drinking, if you don't stop doing drugs, you can't be in the house. Like,
Yeah.
like it creates this clear boundary
Yes.
in response to something that's very dramatic. And we're not comfortable sometimes with
Yeah.
having a dramatic response because it's not how we live our lives all the time.
Right.
And I think that's good. But in this case, it's an appropriate
Yeah.
creating of a crisis. So,
Yeah. I think most often the drive, I think I think I remember in that meeting after being told to read this book and just some of the things we talked about was that I could not make decisions out of fear. And like that is the number one feeling that you have
yeah.
immediately whenever something like this happens is fear.
Yeah.
The thousands of like what if there's so many questions and like almost all of those are based in fear.
Yeah.
And so I think there, for me anyways, the reason why holding that line or any of the things, like whatever that boundary looks like, it's hard because
Hmm.
you're terrified and
Yeah.
you have no idea what life's going to look like 5 seconds from now. And so
Yeah.
like um but I just remember being told like do not make any decision out of fear. That is what you feel right now. But as much as is possible, you have got to make decisions from a place of I don't know what the counter was
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
honestly. But I mean I know ultimately for me what it landed on was like Jesus. It was like I'm going to come to you cuz I am terrified and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the reason. I think that's what makes it the hardest is just
Yeah.
your fear response is just astronomical.
Yeah. Understandably. And
So,
I forget the word that Andrew uses, but every once in a while, like at different points of the story, he'll be like, man, like Lindsay's a beast. Like she's going to do the hard thing. Like she's like, that's not the word he used, but I
yeah.
can't remember like what, I don't know. I feel like it was like a military term or something. I don't know, but it was a compliment, I assure you,
I
in
mean, hey,
Andrew's vocabulary.
that's
But
funny.
we just watched you be faithful in so many ways, and like for you to make the decision of like, no, I'm going to live this season as a single mom with two kids, one is 6 weeks old, and leave my job, like stay in this town because you came
Yeah,
from another town, like, and stay here not knowing what people will say, not knowing can I be a single mom even though it wasn't my fault, like not know, like those are such hard things to work through that we could gloss over and people would never understand, and most people won't. But that like that's how committed you were to your hopefully marriage, like
yeah,
reconciliation of your marriage, and also Colin's heart. Like,
yeah,
and I know that it doesn't look like that when there's separation involved, but I think there's so much power in telling your story and like, no, it was
yeah,
for those reasons.
yeah,
And like, I can say that because I watched it and we talked it out and we prayed. Like, I
yeah.
mean, anyway, so I can say that from the background.
Wow.
Okay, so where do you want to take the story from there?
Oh gosh. So I mean, obviously the first in that situation, and again, like this is our story, and I think you said this a second ago. Oh, whoops, just wrecked the mic.
Okay.
Um,
You feel emotionally charged? That's okay. You hit something? Yeah.
you know, um, no, you said this a second ago that like all the things, like there are some principles that are going to be true. There's truths in here in our story that are true no matter what, because it's the Lord and it's truth, like
Yeah.
all those kinds of things. But as far as like details and all that, like there are no two stories that are alike. And so this is mine, this
Right.
is where we were. And so for me, you know, it was okay, here's my boundary. And then there was like it was communicated from him that like, okay, well, yes, like I want, it was basically like, here's your choice. Like you have a choice and I
Mhm.
am not a part of that right now. Like
Mhm.
this is my choice for me, for the kids. And like, it's drawing this line of obviously would like, I think, and I think
Mhm.
the biggest thing for me was like, first and foremost, like, you have to make that decision on my part of like, am I going to stay
Mhm.
or am I out?
No, I'm actually glad you're saying that because um I didn't have it in my notes to talk about divorce here, but we
Yeah.
can, or
Yeah.
we can go into that more in depth. But what we can say here is, um, I think it was very important for me, and I don't know if you want to speak to this or have comment, but like to say to you that you had a choice.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to say to people who are going through that because not only do you not say like we just approached it from you want reconciliation, love must be tough. Here are some examples of how it looked in
Yeah.
our story. But what is equally true is actually before all of that
Yes.
and in all of that, we also said, "Hey, you do have a choice."
Yeah. Yeah.
And we wanted you to know that
Yeah.
because I don't think we feel comfortable saying
Mm-mm.
that in regards to divorce
No.
sometimes as believers. And I think it's important
Yeah.
to
And
say.
you didn't mean this way, what you just said, but
Okay.
like, just in case someone like hears that, that's not a blanket statement for divorce for any reason.
Right.
Like, we're specifically talking about infidelity here.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I get a choice to divorce just because I'm
Yeah.
annoyed by ex. But no, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
But in the case of infidelity, like you do have a choice. And I think the Bible is clear about
Yeah.
that. Um,
Okay. Let's go into divorce.
so
Um,
yeah, so I mean, I'll give the short version
yeah.
to get to that topic
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
ultimately that is
Mm-hmm.
where actually we landed.
Yeah.
That's where we ended up, and so essentially through lots of wrestling with the Lord and lots
Mm-hmm.
of like, I don't really want to actually do that, but then it's you are in a position where nothing looks good, no option is good, like
Yeah.
all options look like the worst possible choice ever. So you're like, what do we, what do I do?
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, I do think that the Lord um made it clear that I was to stay and he was willing. And so, that whole process started, of we were still separated for many
Mm-hmm.
months, 3 or 4 months. I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Timeline is like literal timeline is very fuzzy. Um, but started marriage counseling. I was seeing a counselor. He was seeing a counselor separately. And like summertime comes, we move back in together. Um, and then like probably within a month of that, just like just could tell, like he still wasn't there were still things that were just off and still whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so essentially just when it's all said and done, like his heart was just still in a very dark place. Um, and the affair had not actually ended, even though, we were both here. And so it's just there's a lot more to like all of what went into this, but like essentially like it just brought me a kind of almost to another place of like, okay, like this is my boundary. And like and I filed for divorce because that is what I felt like
Mm-hmm.
was my next step. And that was not without
Yeah.
the Lord as a whole. I mean, nothing along the way. No part of this, like when you were saying what you said about, you know, watching the faithfulness, like that's not because of me, like that's because of the Lord. And like, just, yes, it was a choice I made to allow the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to comfort me, to minister to me, to be my source of
Yeah.
comfort, peace, guidance. Um, that, I mean, and that was the
Mm-hmm.
extent of what I did, and so
Yeah.
like, um, but yeah, I think that's a hard thing to talk about in the
Yeah.
church. You know, even though like a lot of people will agree, like, yeah, for infidelity, like, yeah, the Bible is clear that,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay, or that's permissible, or whatever. It doesn't make it easy, and that even in and of itself was not, again, it was obedience that like I didn't really want to do, like I didn't
Yeah.
want to do, because that feels different than separation. Like that feels like,
Feels very
no, this
final.
is final, like this
Yeah.
is what we're doing and this is where we are. And again, for me, that was the whole stretch of time between like March until like, I don't know, July, August, whatever that was, 6 7 months. um I think it was just this working out of like that whole time, the process of this wasn't my fault, this is not, like I can't do anything about this. And for me, like that's where the Lord was just really dealing with that control piece of me,
Mhm.
of like just getting me to this place of actual deep surrender, that
Mm.
like there is nothing you can do in terms of Colin and his heart. Like that's mine to handle. And I think in that stretch of time, like the Lord really taught me how to pray.
Mm.
Um, because that is what we can do. I can't change. There's nothing I'm going to do that's going to change
Yeah.
Colin's heart or restore Colin's heart,
Mhm.
but I can pray. And that, and we say that a lot of times is like, oh, it's the least, no, it's the most we can do. It's the most we can do.
Can you just talk to someone who is in a really hard situation, married or not,
Yeah.
whatever that is, where they are praying bold, desperate prayers? Like, what did that look like for you? Because I think we think it can look a certain way, but like,
Yeah.
what did that look like? What did you learn about bold, desperate prayers in that time?
Um, they're ugly most of the time.
Yeah.
They're ugly.
Yeah.
They're,
Why
um,
do you think that's hard to do? Why do you think that's hard for us to allow it to be ugly?
I think because and I think because we think, um, we have to be a certain way when we go to God, or like we have
Yeah.
to, but and again, like I think there is a line, and I want to say maybe Jackie Hill Perry talks about this. I don't know. I feel like I've heard something relatively recently, not well enough to pull that with my pregnancy brain's not going to remember exactly what, but like there is a line between um an irreverence for the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and that we have to be careful, I think, of that.
Mm-hmm.
But where I was just like, I don't have anything. You gonna get my honesty because you know it anyways. Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what else to do. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know how else to interact. And so I think those bold, desperate prayers, I think started with a lot of anger
Yeah.
and a lot of hurt and a lot of confusion. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, anger was a primary emotion for a good bit. But I think in the process of taking that to the Lord over and over again, and he and just honestly, like we talked about last week, like we don't there's no degree of surrender to the Lord that we're not like slightly frustrated about it, because we're like, well, just throw your hands up kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so I think in the midst of like the anger and all of that, it was, I'm going to choose to follow you and obey you and come to you, because what else am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Where else would I go? I mean, that's the Peter, after he walks on water and
Yeah. Are
Jesus
you gonna
speaks
leave
like, are you
too?
going to leave? And it's like, well, no, because where else would we go?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have believed, but now we've come to know.
You alone hold
Yes.
the words of eternal life.
Yes.
Like,
And so, I think the bold prayers in that regard, I think the Lord transformed like my motivation along the way of
mm-hmm.
like, why am I praying these things? And for me, a lot of it was really just centered around Colin's heart, because like, no matter what happens, like here's a person that like I love. I've spent over a decade with, I have 2 kids with, and like, I'm fearful for him because I know
Mm-hmm.
where the dangerous line that he's walking, and like that scares me. And so like what started off as like, hey God, fix this,
Mm-hmm.
save my marriage, make this all better, really just turned into, no, save him, like save his heart, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means that I'm not a part of that equation, then okay. And like
Mm.
that's a hard place to get to. Like,
Yeah.
and I can't take credit for that. I mean, it was really just the determination of like, I'm just going to keep coming to you and I'm going to keep showing up. And I have no stinking clue what you're doing and what is happening right now. But
And look at the
I,
crazy sovereignty of God of while he's working those things out
yeah,
in Collin that you never had control over.
yeah,
He's providing this refinement that's making room for peace
yes,
in your life.
yeah,
To let go of that control and trust him in ways that you hadn't found possible regardless.
no,
Didn't, doesn't mean you choose it,
right,
but he was
right,
making ways where it didn't seem like any good
yeah,
could come.
yeah.
Um, you said something that I wanted to ask about, and now I've forgotten. So maybe I didn't need to ask it. Well, okay. We talked about bold prayers. I want to ask you to speak a minute, as specifically as you feel comfortable, about how did you walk this out in regards to kids? Because I can say this much. I always saw y'all seek and endeavor to co-parent well.
Yeah.
Even when things were very hard.
Yeah.
Even when things did not look good. I always saw y'all put that first. And I saw a lot of small things, like not some, they were big, but like just glimmers of how you walked this out.
Yeah.
With the kids. And I know that's a big concern, especially where it comes from people making decisions of separation or divorce, or how do we communicate? So can you speak to that? Like, that's like, what about my kids?
Yeah. Honest to goodness, like, Hallie, I don't know that I can really like speak to that without talking about forgiveness first, because
Okay.
I think if you're resentful and bitter, you're not going to walk that out well with your kids. I really don't. I don't think you are.
Yeah.
And I can say that because I think up until the point that I broke there, I was mad and I was like, over my dead body, like you're going to see your kids every 2 seconds under my supervision. Like, just,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some like boundaries that need to be drawn
Yeah.
there that are
Again,
understandable
different
and
stories,
rightful.
different reasons,
very
different,
much so,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that could go 50 gajillion different ways.
Uh-huh.
As far as we were concerned, it was not ever a question that he would not still be a part of the kids' lives, like from the very beginning. I mean, now granted, right at first there were some heavy boundaries on my side of that, of just because I'm like, I don't recognize you anymore, and like there's fear, and rightfully so. But as time went on, like, because of my choice, and it is a choice, I don't do the doing. I don't do the forgiving. That is not like I do. We as human beings don't have the capacity to forgive things that come with heavier consequences. I don't know how to say that well. Because sure, like if somebody does a little, sure, we can move past some of those things. When I think one of the things with forgiveness and sin, is that we want to level sins and we want to say one sin is worse than another. And that's not true in the eyes of God. However, some sins come with greater consequences. And so the ones that come with greater consequences, we don't, Lindsay Stagg did not have the capacity to forgive Collin for that, what he had done.
Yeah.
I didn't. But I did know that I had a choice, and I did know it was a command that the Lord commands that we forgive. And in light of what Jesus has done for us, how dare we not at least make the choice?
What is forgiveness not? Let's see.
Forgiveness is one, we don't forgive and forget. Yeah. We are not God. Yeah. And so there's no like that whole forgive and forget mentality. It's like, no, we don't do that. We can't do that.
Yeah, it's not the removal of memory.
It's not the removal of memory. It's not the removal of the consequences. It is not always reconciliation when we choose to forgive. it is not always, oh, you get to have a relationship with me.
It's not always reconciliation.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
so, but forgiveness is choosing to absorb the
Mhm.
consequences for someone else's action, and to the
Mm.
outside world, like that's ludicrous. And it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Um but
Cue the angry prayers.
yes, that's where a lot of the anger came from early on. Is
Yeah.
like, how dare you ask me to forgive, or how
Yeah.
dare you demand I forgive this? Like, how can I?
Yeah.
And I do want to toss this out as a resource, and this is not just for infidelity. Like, this is
Mhm.
just on forgiveness, and it's
Mhm.
a fantastic resource. It's Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lisa Turkhurst. I don't care if you're male, female.
Mhm.
If you struggle with forgiveness,
Mhm.
you need to read this book. Like, it's
Yeah.
not the Bible, but she takes biblical truths and like
Mhm.
helps us to really understand that. And so
Yeah.
it's a really, really good resource. Um,
It's not the absence of negative feelings
oh
either. It's
gosh,
not like
no.
you
Oh
never
no.
have negative feelings
Yes.
to this day
Yes.
about hard things.
Um, this is important because I thought this was really important to talk about. So I'm glad you said that because it jogged my memory about this page. It's a page that I have marked. And it just says, I only need to bring my willingness to forgive, not the fullness of all my restored feelings. Like, you can still be angry and go to God and say, I'm going to choose to forgive.
Yeah.
It doesn't fix your feelings first. That's
And
not what
I'm guessing
happens.
it's not a one and done.
It's not a one and done. It is a constant. Anytime something happens. And
Mhm.
I think this is important too, is like, we think, oh, I'm going to forgive you this one time. I'm going to forgive this, say it here and move on.
Mhm.
Anytime something reminds me, something triggers, something comes up, I have to choose
Yeah.
to go to the Lord again and say, still angry about this thing, but I forgive. And it's not just forgiving. I don't know how I can't remember exactly how she words this. It's not just forgiving the action that happened. It's forgiving the consequences too. Every time something new or something shifts, or you're made aware of, oh well, now this is a consequence of that, you have to forgive for that too. And it is constant. And
Yeah.
that's not just for, let me just say this too, like, that's not just for like big offenses.
Yeah.
That should be how we operate in every relationship. And
Yeah.
like, we don't really think to do that it's like even small things, like
Yeah.
maybe your spouse didn't make you feel like a priority. We
Mhm.
have to even make the choice to say, like, I choose to forgive you for that, because we're not perfect. Like,
Yeah.
we fail each other all the time.
Mhm.
So I don't know, that I think that's important, because if you, before talking about kids stuff, because
Hopefully y'all can't hear
I
this,
was about
but
to
they
say,
are
there's a
mowing outside.
loud lawnmower that just drove by. Um,
Yeah.
maybe they'll make a few passes and be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think if either one of you, offender or the offended party, are like harboring
Yeah.
anger, bitterness, resentment, unforgiveness, and like you're not choosing to forgive, like
Mhm.
you're not going to be effective with your kids. You're not going to be. I'm not saying that there's not things that can't. I'm not okay. Let me. That was
No, but
kind
no.
of harsh. That was intense. I didn't mean it to be that intense.
Okay, I'll allow you to rephrase it and then I'll add to it.
Okay, I think if either one of you is harboring that unforgiveness or resentment towards each other, that is inevitably going to filter to your kids.
Yeah.
Like, no
For
matter
sure.
what you do. So
Yeah.
that, you know,
Yeah. No, it does. And I was going to add to that, like, that's a good reason for people to, in prayer, in community, and confession, and counseling, like, please work out your things that you struggle with. If
yes,
you feel like, I'm fine, I'm not going to seek counseling for yourself, I promise you it's affecting the people closest to you.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Okay.
okay, so
With our
original
kids.
question.
Yes.
With your kids, you've got to work through your own stuff. I love that.
Yes, absolutely. And that choosing to bringing my willingness to forgive,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew I did not want my heart to be hardened, because we have all been around someone who is bitter,
Yep.
negative, resentful, whatever. It just spills over into everything. And
Yeah.
like I was like, no, I don't want to
Yeah.
I don't want to find myself there.
Mhm.
Sometimes you do.
Mhm.
You have moments where you're like,
Well, it's
actually,
like you can absorb these consequences that
yeah,
don't seem fair, or you can absorb this consequence and be bitter for the rest of your life
yes,
that
yeah,
that wasn't it wasn't your fault that it happened, but I mean, which do you
yes.
want to absorb?
And so, yeah, I think for me, also that verse, now they're weed eating.
Yeah.
It's a
just
tiny, it's
just
just,
around this window, yeah.
it's a tiny little area. They'll be done soon.
Yeah.
I think for me, another thing, and I don't even remember when along the way this came about or this was a verse that like was important to me, but it's just a verse and it's a very simple verse, but I think it's important. You've brought this up before on episodes, of just as so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all.
Mm.
And so for me, like, that's just where I landed. And it was like, look, we may not be together and this may not look the way that I ultimately wanted it to look and
Mhm.
sometimes didn't, you know? Um, but like I will choose to forgive because I know even separated, I was like, we can still co-parent
Mhm.
and I still want you to be a part of our kids' lives. I do not want that like total. And again, that was unique. That's unique to our situation. There are probably thousands of reasons why a cutoff is necessary.
Mhm.
But in this situation, that was not the case. And so I just had made it up. I don't know. Again, like I think it's all
Mhm.
because of what the Lord was doing in my own heart with the
Mhm.
forgiveness and just the peace and the surrender of like, if this is where we're at, this is where we're at. If we're getting divorced, which at that point we were. I mean, we were getting divorced, and it
Mhm.
was like, um, I want to co-parent, and I want our
Mhm.
kids to see that example, even if we're not together.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was really important.
Yeah.
I can't speak for Colin at that time because obviously we weren't totally having those kinds of conversations together. It was maybe more or less me saying, hey, I'm not going to not include you on things. I'm not going to not invite you to
Mhm.
things. This is where we're at. Come if you want to come, don't if you don't. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of where that landed from my perspective
Yeah.
on a lot of things. And so that's where we had landed.
Mhm.
And I think if you're walking through something like this, and this was advice given to me by counselors, both counselors, especially once I made the decision to file for divorce. We had obviously, like, I had conversations to the best of my ability that is age appropriate with my kids. But I mean, at the time, Lillian was 2.5. I mean, well, by the time that all happened, she was turning 3.
Mhm.
I mean, John Michael was, clearly didn't have any conversations with John Michael,
Yeah.
um, in the newborn life. But, you know, I think I was told to be honest and I was told to not pretend like things weren't happening that were
Mhm.
because kids are more perceptive, they're more aware than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
Do they understand? No, not totally at those ages, but like
Yeah.
they know something, like she knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
Clearly, like,
Yeah.
just it doesn't, your kids don't go unaffected no
Right.
matter the age. They
Yeah.
don't go unaffected. And so, would answer the questions that I was asked.
Mhm.
So for me, that just looked like being honest whenever she asked a question as age appropriate and best I could, never without prayer first. I mean, truly, never without
Mhm.
prayer. Um, or like in panic, calling a
Mhm.
friend or a counselor to be like, I need to talk through this. Like Emily Jones was someone I talked to a lot
Mhm.
of like, I don't know what to say right now. Like, how do I word this? But
Mhm.
you seek help and you seek counseling on that. But like, it is better to be honest with your kids than to pretend like nothing is happening.
Yeah.
And that is hard.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I watched you wrestle with decisions so much, and I know that felt exhausting and chaotic. I mean, like
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out what's happening for yourself, and then also how do I word this in a way that you can understand it at 3. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, there's just a lot. But at the same time, the fact that I was watching you wrestle means you were wrestling. Like,
Yeah.
you were seeking counsel, you were praying about it, you were like trying to do what's best for them, and to still honor Collin, and like
Yeah.
a lot of that. And like I can remember one conversation, and I don't remember what the specific situation was, but just us talking about like, you're going to do your best, but like at the same time, the Lord is your shepherd.
Yes.
He's also their shepherd,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's not permission for us to just move out in the world carelessly,
No.
but that is something to fall back and rest
Yes.
on in seasons
Well,
where we don't know if we're doing it all right.
yes, and it's the reminder that even as moms, like, we do not have
Yeah.
these kids are entrusted to us. Like,
Yeah.
it even in that, like, it does not fall to me.
Hmm.
I'm doing the best that I can with them. He's
Hmm.
doing the best that he can with them. The Lord sees them and is taking
Hmm.
care of them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's hard.
yeah.
One of the things that I saw you be really faithful in, that I don't know if anybody else saw, maybe your counselors, is like, I saw you so committed to walk things out faithfully with the Lord. If no one else saw it, like just truly live with like the epitome of integrity. And I know you're going to tell me it wasn't every moment. And I saw those too and joined in. Um, but whatever moment you had of weakness or what, or human flesh, you always led or stepped with faithfulness. And I watched you even apologize for things, for words, when the world would said, you don't know that at all. Why did you do that?
Dadgum conviction, that's why. More angry words with the Lord afterwards. Um,
But why doesn't a large action on someone else's part give you permission to speak whatever you
because
want to
yeah.
bubble out of your feelings?
Oh yeah, there were plenty of times I did, but because I'm still responsible for me. Like, I'm still responsible for my actions. And like, as a believer, I have the Holy Spirit. I am still, the spirit in me is supposed to produce self-control, patience, all those things. And I think for me, a lot of those instances, it was I don't even know. Like, it was just again, I think it was just the Lord. Like, it was the Lord. And the conviction to say, like, hey, he's still a human being. Like, he is still a whole person, and the Lord loves him just as much as he loves me.
Mm.
And like, yeah, he has made a terrible choice that is hurtful and devastating. But like, in light of the cross, I am no better. I'm no better. And like, I feel like that is a shift for me. Because again, when we look at these kinds of things through a worldly lens, of course, we see this because of the consequences
Mhm.
being so devastating as way worse than somebody who, I don't know, you're a chronic liar or
Mhm.
you're idolizing control.
Mhm.
And we say, oh, well, I'm better than you because you did this thing. And it's like, in light of the cross, no, we're
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
No, we're not. It
Mhm.
was all of our sins, all the sins we have ever committed, and all the sins we will ever commit. We all put him on that cross. And so,
Mhm.
like, I think that's a part of forgiveness is understanding that in light of that,
Mhm.
not one of us is worthy.
Yeah.
And so, again, all of that comes back to me asking the Lord to keep my heart tender
Mm.
um, towards everyone because it's really easy.
Well, it's hard to want to keep your heart tender because that means you leave yourself open to hurt.
Yes, and I distinctly remember throwing a hissy fit with the Lord one day
Yeah.
after something that had happened and was like, I take it back. I don't want my heart to be tender.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I had those moments too of like, forget what
Yeah.
I said.
Yeah.
Take it back.
Mhm.
you know, but I didn't mean it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just think number one, it's you're still responsible for your own actions. And like you can be angry but don't sin.
Mm.
You can be angry but don't sin.
Mhm.
And like I can be hurt and I can be angry, but I'm still responsible for the way that I treat people. It's not an excuse and it's not like a free pass.
Yeah.
The Lord doesn't say, like, oh, well, you know, you can, I don't know. I just,
Well, and like being angry and not sinning and letting your reasonableness be made known to
yeah.
everyone does not mean never explaining why you're hurt
Oh,
or
yeah.
angry. Like it doesn't
And it doesn't
mean
mean not being those things.
to
You're going to be
or
angry.
to
Yeah.
communicate those, but how
Yeah.
and what's the reason
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what's the presentation, and so so good. I want you to walk us back in the making of the decision to file for divorce. There was a story
Yeah.
of Abraham and Isaac that really spoke to you for a long time. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, that was really like, I feel like you went back to that story a lot.
Yeah.
Can you just set up that for us and why was that so pivotal for that decision?
Yeah. So I think I had had some time alone for a few days before, everything kind of fell apart again, or never really was back together, but just like, finished falling apart, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't even remember why. Like, I could not tell you, like, was it in a devotional I had been reading? Was it in something I listened to? I don't know. But like this, there were like multiple things that kind of happened that just kept like bringing up the story of Abraham and Isaac, which, like, long story short version of, um, Abraham was promised
Mm-hmm.
that he would be the father of many nations, all things, has Isaac, all there's whole, all the things there. But
Mm-hmm.
then the Lord basically tells him to sacrifice Isaac,
Mm-hmm.
and which is insanity. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone who at any point in history, like, that's
Mm-hmm.
insanity.
Yeah.
Um, but Isaac,
Especially when you've been given this specific promise.
yes. And I remember, like, one of the things that struck me, let me see if I can find it really fast when I was reading that. Let's see if I can get there quickly. Anyways, okay, so he just said, okay, so it's Genesis 22 for anyone who wants to read the whole story. Or part of the whole story. But it just says, after these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. He said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. And then verse 3, so Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took two of his young men with him and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Now, I would love to know what happened in Isaac's brain
Yeah.
from well, the point in which he was told to the point in which he arose.
Mm-hmm.
But what struck me is just he just did it. He was like
Abraham's brain.
Abraham.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because I do be wondering what's happened in Isaac's brain too.
Oh, for
as well.
sure. For
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. I love the memes and things that are like, the walk back down from whatever, or the night
awkward walk,
after.
yeah.
Yeah. With Isaac. No, for sure.
Yeah, and Abraham's brain after he's given
Yes.
the yeah.
But and this was all before the filing for divorce. And so, like, just had wrestled with, like, why does this keep coming up? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is what are you trying to get at here, Lord?
Yeah.
And so ultimately this is a very intense but, like, beautiful picture of surrender that,
Yeah.
like, Abraham was just basically like,
Are you
I
gonna be
trust
faithful or are
you.
you gonna not?
Yeah, and he trusted in the promise of God, so much so that it was basically like, he's gonna provide, like, he's
Yeah.
gonna provide
Yeah.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I think in the New Testament it was
Yes.
like maybe this is Hebrews,
Yes, it
thought
is.
that God was gonna resurrect
Yes,
Isaac. Like,
which,
you
like,
know,
I think I've read some, like, different things here and there about that, which is interesting that he would have even had that thought because there was no context for that up to that
right.
point. Like, that had never
Right.
happened before. So the fact that he believed what God said so much that he thought, even if I do this, the Lord can raise him from the dead,
Mm.
like, is crazy.
Yeah.
Anyways, so basically, I think a lot of this was kind of helping me get to this place of understanding of surrender. And like, I remember having that conversation. Maybe I think you and I had this conversation somewhere along the way of like, well, what does it look like? What does it look like to for you in this situation with your marriage and everything? Because I think at that point still felt like, okay, I've got some sense of control here. I don't know why I thought that, but you know,
Why do we think
I
anything?
don't know. And for me, I think that the literal act of filing for divorce was like, God, this is all I have left to like that I am holding on so tightly to this.
Mhm.
And this is how I surrender this to you.
Well, like in light of hearing you word it that way, like it's almost like I know I don't have any control over
Yeah.
this. So like me going through this action
Yeah.
is stating that.
Yeah.
And what I love about that story is like the Lord, I mean, you have the verses in front of you, but it states something about like now that I see that you will be
Yes.
faithful.
Yes.
But it's not that God did not know
Right.
what Abraham would do,
Yes.
but who learned?
Yeah. Abraham.
Abraham learned that he would be faithful.
Yes.
And like I don't think we know that about ourselves
Yeah.
until it comes down to the wire
Yes.
of will you do it?
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. And I mean for me too, like this is the story where I mean we learn of Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. And it's like the Lord will provide um how does he say it? Like he says,
He will see to it or something like that.
yes, well, I can't find it now. I just saw it. Anyways, but I mean, he basically says like the Lord he's going to provide a way, whatever that looks like, he's going to
Mm-hmm.
provide. And I think too, like, oh, God will provide for myself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went both of them together. So at that point, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I'm confident that something's going to happen. Like, he's
Yeah.
going to provide. But then again, like when we go to Hebrews, like it also says, I
Yeah.
don't know, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and I think too that in some regard, probably not at first, but like somewhere along the way, my mindset was, I have no control over this anyways. I don't want the old. Like
Mm-hmm.
that marriage is dead.
Mm-hmm.
It died a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
The day that Collin chose to step into sin, like, and step out of our marriage. And so, like, for me, it was like, this is my surrender. This is what my surrender looks like. And that is filing for divorce when I know that I have held tightly to this marriage. I trust you. I don't understand why this is where we're at now.
Yeah.
But I also trust that, like, if you want to restore, you will.
Mm-hmm.
And divorce isn't going to change that. And so I didn't go into it with the expectation
Right.
that I went into it with the, okay, this is where we're
Willingness to
at.
do what he
Like,
asked you to do.
we'll be divorced and I don't know where we go from here.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. But that's kind of where the Jehovah Jireh for me, like, really, this story is what gave me, I think, a different perspective. And that, um, yes, the Lord did provide a tangible replacement for Isaac, but like this is a picture of Jesus. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is foreshadowing
Mm-hmm.
of Jesus, who is the perfect sacrifice that would atone for the sins. And so, like,
Yeah. On the same mountain.
on the same mountain. And so, like, for me, it was, I don't know what the provision's going to look like. And honestly, for a long time, I think right at first I thought, like, oh, we're gonna be married and like it's gonna be fine. I'm gonna do this thing, but the
Mm-hmm.
Lord's gonna provide. Like, I don't know. And I think again it was Emily Jones and all her wisdom all the
Yeah.
time, all the time. I don't even remember. She may not even remember this, and I don't remember the context. But we were sitting at church, and I said something, and I think she looked at me and said, Lillian, Lindsay, like Con's not going to be that provision. Like you understand that, right? Like it's Jesus, and like I knew that,
Mm-hmm.
but just something in my world shifted, and that like
Mm-hmm.
after I just went away with that and was like, here I am still,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm surrendered, but I'm still thinking, okay, what's the Lord gonna do for me?
Yeah.
And it's like No, no. The Lord has already done what the most important and valuable thing he could ever do for any of us. And if he never did anything else. And like from that point forward,
Mm-hmm.
it was like almost a repentance in my own heart of like, I'm sorry. Like I'm still looking
Mm-hmm.
for what are you going to do for me and how are you going to fix this? And it's like, no, it's you. Like it's you. It's always been you. You are my provision
Mm-hmm.
through infertility, through the move, through friend, all the things. Like it has always been you. And I have always chosen to look for the tangible thing and
Mm-hmm.
not, and I've missed, what is it we always say? Like we bypass the healer because we want the healing and we don't
Mm-hmm.
focus. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
the Lord is that provision
Yeah.
and he is good and he is
Mm-hmm.
faithful and he is kind and our thing, the provision and the ways that he does provide for us may or may not look like what we want that to look like.
Yeah.
Um, but he's good in spite of all of
Mm-hmm.
that, even in the midst, whenever nothing else looks good,
Yeah.
he is good. And I think that's a key thing that I don't know, I really learned
Yeah.
because we can say the Lord is good. We can say we trust the Lord. We can say we believe him,
Mm-hmm.
but until we've come to know, and usually that's not until we've walked through something that's,
Yeah.
So.
So good. I do like, we've touched on some stuff with divorce, and I do want to just share some of this that I've
Yeah.
gathered, like in trying to seek wise counsel. And, you know, you, when we first mentioned it earlier on in the story, you made a distinction of like, that doesn't mean divorce for any reason.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that because in that sermon, same sermon I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that I will link, is Tim Keller says Jesus tells us two things about divorce. It's like an amputation, and sometimes it's necessary to live. And he might have said another thing, but those two things for today's purposes stuck out to me in the sense that, like, when is it God's plan for divorce? Never. When was it God's plan for us to sin in the garden? It wasn't.
Yeah.
Does that mean that it's not beautiful and also within his sovereignty that Jesus came and saved us?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how can those two things be true? From the very beginning, it was not his intention for us to sin. It was not his intention for us to experience that separation. And yet, within his good and perfect will also came the Lamb of God that
Right.
we just established in that story about Abraham and Isaac. Like, how can those two things be true at the same time? Only in his sovereignty. I mean, we've, said that a lot in this episode, but it's just true. But when it comes to teaching about divorce, like, he gave the example, like with an amputation, like a doctor who constantly said in his first response to things, like, oh, I think it needs to be amputated. I think it needs to go. We're going to have to amputate. Like, that doctor would be run out of town. Like, no one would see that doctor. That would not, like, nobody would regard anything that he had to say. And that such is the same for divorce. Like, anyone who treats it as flippant or a quick fix or the first immediate thing that we should do, like, that's not true. That's the way of the world to treat, like, marriage is not sacred and divorce is the fix. Like, that's not, that narrative is not true. And so, like, as believers, we do reject that. And that's been abuse, like that, like, we see that in statistics. Yet at the same time, because of the human condition of hardened hearts, sometimes in the absolute last case scenario, like an amputation, it is necessary to live. And I love the way he says this. He says, and then Jesus lists one reason why. And he gives adultery, or the root word's porneia.
Yeah.
Which we don't dive into this, but, like, what constitutes adultery? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it pornography? I mean, we could really dive into some of those things and step on some toes. We're not going to do that today, but like the key words, that the reason that God allowed it is hardened hearts.
Yeah.
And like, if we're going to pretend as the church, like divorce is the unpardonable sin, that one can only happen because of infidelity, like what about situations of abuse?
Right.
Are you going to tell me that you're going to tell that person to stay
Yeah.
in a place that is physically unsafe for them and their children?
Right.
Like, no, like you would make an allowance there. There are situations where an absolute worst case scenario, you don't want to have to do it and you are going to have to change the way you live. It's necessary to amputate. And like divorce is similar in that way. And so like, and that's why we have verses like, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder, I think is the like original. And it's like, you can't make a clean separation. We've had people describe it before, like if you glue two pieces of paper together and you go to peel them apart years later, like those pieces are coming off not clean, you know, like there's going to be tears, and like that's absolutely true. And on that same note of treating it like the unpardonable sin, he made the bold statement of like, well, then would you say that people who have had other sins like murder or stealing or, you know, like, and I can't remember what all he listed, once they've repented and turned towards the Lord, would you say they don't have the right to marry?
Yeah.
Then why would you, you know, like if it was for some reason a divorce that was not on biblical grounds, why do we set that apart as the only place where you should have absolutely been faithful? What about if we feel led to homeschool or move or take or quit a job and we don't?
Yeah.
Does that discount us from ever walking with the Lord again? Like, that can't be. Now, again, there's sanctity in marriage because God designed it, so we handle it with absolute care. But that does not mean there's not room for repentance for the people who have who feel like, I shouldn't have, or I did and I don't know what to do with that, or this is what the church has said to me, or people in the church, like, and again, the church, like one person does not speak for the whole church, but but like I just think that was so important to uphold when we're talking about these things, because it can feel so messy and like we don't hold the pieces of everyone's story, but like because he made allowance for hardened hearts, and it is a heart issue, like let's don't be so quick to judge what we can't see, you know. And so
no, that's really good.
I just thought that was really good. And he gave the example of David and Bathsheba. Like obviously that marriage should not have started. David committed adultery and he committed murder in order for him to be with Bathsheba, and we don't have time to go into the story, but when David rightly and honestly repented of that, later Solomon comes out of that union, and way on down the line his God's son comes through that union. Like the Lord can use so many broken pieces of our stories, and like I just say that because I feel like it would be a disservice for us to not speak to the people who are walking alongside those who are having marital issues, because we have to be able to know what's true. If we're going to act like an extension of Jesus Christ, then know what Jesus Christ would say about things. And that's so important. And like, I think we have hit on these, but just as a friend, like to let someone know that they have a choice. You don't need to know every detail.
No.
You shouldn't know every detail.
No.
That's not.
No.
Why does that matter?
It doesn't.
You know?
Yeah. No.
But also just to like be supportive of like, you can honestly say what you feel is right, or what you've hopefully filtered through prayer and time in scripture, but like it is the friend's decision with hopefully the Lord to decide what they're going to do, and then it's your job to walk alongside, you know. And like, well, I can speak to those things.
Yes, and you did that very well, so I can brag on you for that, because and I think what you said about filtering everything on your part, like in your opinions and your thoughts through the Lord first is really important. And you did that. You did that very well. And I think it's important to share and to be honest um, with the friend that you're walking through. But it's so important to point those people to Jesus
Yeah.
too. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, so you did that. You're faithful, and we did talk about the season of like you're co-parenting,
Yeah.
you're leading with
Yeah.
faithfulness in areas, and but then something shifts
Yeah.
in his heart and in
Yes.
his world that you almost didn't see because you're living to
Yeah.
but then like the narrative starts to change, like the motivation starts to change.
Yes.
There's pursuing on that side that
Yeah.
hasn't been, like
Yeah.
what did that look like? And I'd like for you to take us through what that looked like and felt like, and also why was it different to trust this time?
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't even remember 100% like when exactly. I mean, I do distinctly remember one conversation he and I had because I mean, again, we were not we were we were talking when necessary. Not
Mhm.
not there was not like a
Cold shoulder,
right.
but like we're not moving towards reconciliation, so
Right.
there's not as much to discuss.
Yes. And so I just so we weren't obviously having like in-depth conversations about anything. Um and so I remember having a conversation and I mean I think he maybe initiated it somewhere along the way. And he said something and I don't think he'll mind me saying this. And again like that'll there's a lot from his perspective that like I can't speak to, but
Hmm.
he made this comment that was like, I've had a lot of people say they miss the old Colin and he was like I don't miss that Colin, like I don't want to ever go back there. And like for me, like that was kind of startling. Because, Colin has the fun personality and like just he's outgoing and he's friendly and he's
Hmm.
goofy and just all those kinds of things.
Hmm.
And that isn't what he meant
Right.
because like he's still Colin
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
but there was just a shift and a realization in his own heart that like for me like that statement held so much more than what those few words might would communicate.
Hmm.
um and I mean he asked if he could start pursuing it and honestly at first I was like no, I don't
Yeah.
think so, I'm gonna need some time with that. And then finally I just kind of was like maybe I don't
Yeah.
know, like I don't even know what I told him because I was like I don't know
Yeah.
how I feel about that and I didn't know how I felt about that.
Well, I remember there being a good chunk of time where you went back to marriage counseling and he was like, I'm here because
That
my
was
goal
probably
is for us
towards
to get back
yes.
together.
So
And you're like, I'm here because I just want to be able to co-parent well. And
yes.
I'm going to be honest that I don't know that
Yeah.
it's going to end there.
Right.
And
And
like,
that was kind of like towards
hmm,
the end in my
yeah,
brain. Like, where's my
yeah,
markers? I'm sorry, that's confusing for anybody else. Like,
the end or the
towards
beginning, whichever way
the
you
end
want
of the beginning. Yeah.
to.
But who knows? But like the chunk of time in between, which was kind of like winter, spring, early spring, it was really just like, I don't have an answer. I don't know that I had an answer. Honestly, I don't remember if I gave him like a, yeah, you can, or no, you can't. Or it was probably just more of like, do what you're going to do. Like, I'm not going to, like, I don't
Hmm.
know. And a lot of that time for me was more wrestling with the Lord of like, what,
Hmm.
what, because here I am, like, this is my mindset and this is where I'm at. And I'm okay with that. Like, I have gotten to a place where I'm at peace
Yeah.
with where we are, what's happening. And it just felt a little bit like, I don't have the energy. I don't have energy for this
Yeah.
whiplash,
Yeah.
you know? Um, but the Lord in that stretch of time before marriage counseling was so kind to me. And I felt so seen by
Hmm.
the Lord through Colin. And
Hmm.
like that was a huge deal of things. Like I can, I'll give this very specific
Yeah.
example
I know
because
you're gonna
like
say.
it's kind of silly, but not silly at
No, yeah,
all.
it's not.
But like I distinctly remember standing in the grocery store almost in tears because mealtime was horrible with my 1-year-old screaming at my feet every day. Like it was just always a struggle. And I was just like, hey, God, like this single parent thing is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you something too, like on the side note of that, like breeding ground for resentment.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
had to be so intentional in that separation and in that time of just you feel the weight of those consequences.
Yeah.
And that resentment is so easy. It's
Yeah.
so easy to feel,
Yeah.
but had to be so intentional. Anyways, side note of that.
Yeah.
But just standing there and being so frustrated and so exhausted of like, I don't want to cook another meal. I don't want to cook another meal. I'm so
Mm-hmm.
tired of cooking meals every night,
Mm-hmm.
doing the cleanup every night, picking up the toys every like I just was like
Mm-hmm.
kind of at my wit's end of like, do you see me? I have at that point it was a little bit of like, I feel like I have been faithful and like,
Mm-hmm.
do you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Like over here struggling.
Yeah.
Um, and I kid you not, I get a text from Collin and it was, hey, have you already done groceries for the week? I want to cook for y'all a couple of nights this week. And like, I know I lost it in the grocery aisle. And, there's many times in
Mm-hmm.
that season of life where people, I
And
mean,
he
if
didn't
you saw
know
me out in public crying, don't worry. Like I wasn't okay,
in
but
any of the stretch of 2 years. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but he had no idea.
Yeah.
That's not a conversation we were having. I wasn't like, hey,
Yeah.
I need you to help me with these children. That's not how I did. I just didn't
Yeah.
operate like that. And so
Yeah.
like he had no idea. And like for me, what that communicated was number one, the Lord was like, yes, I do see you.
Mm-hmm. I'm working on your
I'm
behalf.
working. And which was another big part of things, the
Mm-hmm.
the story of Exodus and Moses telling them that or God saying like, what does it be still like, or you have only
Yeah.
to be silent,
Yeah. And the Lord will fight
the
for
Lord
you.
will fight for you. Thank you. My brain was forgetting
Yeah.
the first part. The Lord will fight for you. You have only to be silent. And like, that's where I was. That's what that stretch of time was for me, was
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
like you have to fight for me because I don't know what we're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like, and so those were the kinds of things that you talked about, what that trust, like the restoration of trust. I didn't trust Collin. I didn't
Yeah.
trust Collin at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But I did trust the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord showed me through Collin that I could trust the Lord.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, it was like he showed you you started to say he showed you two things. He showed you he was fighting for you on your behalf,
Yes.
and he showed you Colin was listening.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And so, and then, yeah, we started marriage counseling again, per his request. And I was like, I don't know, you know, but finally I was like, you know what? Yeah, because I want this relationship to go well
Mm-hmm.
as far as co-parenting goes. And like, I don't know how we navigate that totally. So like, yeah, we can
Yeah.
go to counseling for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it did eventually get to this point of like, hey, our marriage counselor was like, you have a choice to make because like the way that we do things in here is contingent upon, are we co-parenting or are we looking towards the
Mm-hmm.
reconciliation
Working out
and
two different
restoration of
issues.
marriage?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's a great question, and so, you know, I, I had an encounter. I had an encounter with the Lord, that was abundantly clear and not, there was no denying what I felt like the Lord said to do. And so that was that. Like there's no question. There's no, I felt like in that moment, it was a specific,
Mm-hmm.
almost promise from the Lord. And like he has so far remained faithful to that. And I believe that he forever will. And just that our marriage would be restored and he would restore that marriage. And in our silliness, like in my silliness of like, even I was like, well, what do you like? Are you sure? Like we
Yeah.
have to ask those questions. Like, wait, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that? And I say as that encounter, that sounds like a weird word. Now that I'm thinking about it, it seems like a strange word. I don't mean anything like wild and crazy, but like
Well,
just an
he can work in wild and
experience.
crazy
He
ways.
can, he for sure can.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything like crazy. It was
wasn't a
just
vision.
no, it wasn't a vision. It wasn't whatever. It was just Like I was very clear that it
Mhm.
was the Lord. And so, on our anniversary, actually, because we hadn't officially gotten divorced, it's a whole like year, I think, before
Yeah.
like the paperwork is final.
Yeah.
And so I think the paperwork would have probably been final like in August or something like that. But June 9th,
Yeah.
um, I don't know that I can tell you the year because what year is it right now?
It was 2024.
2024. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Um, yeah, we went to Arkansas with you and Andrew, and
Yeah.
that was the whole thing, but
Mhm.
just he and I together before the Lord, just kind of we
Made a new covenant.
made a new covenant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here we are
Mm.
a year later.
I think you can think on this, but I think we should share the June 9th video.
Oh gosh.
It's so
We
fun.
can. Yeah. We
haven't
probably
ever
could.
shared it,
We haven't ever shared it.
but I made it, and
She did. She made a cool video.
I think I still have it somewhere. So
Yeah.
if I
If
can
not,
find it,
I feel like you sent it. So like Collin probably for sure could find it.
yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
Two more questions, because
Yes.
this is a long
I
episode,
know.
but
Sorry about that.
no, don't be.
I don't even know what our time is.
It's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Um, two things. One, I've forgotten the first one. Oh yeah, there. This is what happens when we go past my
Oh,
1
I
hour
know.
of being
I
on
know.
my
I
brain.
know.
One, this is not to say, like, let me say my words, not yours.
Yeah.
Y'all have one of the most solid marriages that I know, because you've had to.
Yeah.
Because you've had to.
Yeah.
And you've chosen to. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to say had as in y'all haven't been faithful, because you have.
Right.
Still, that does not mean things don't come up.
Oh gosh.
Old triggers don't happen.
Yes.
New consequences.
Yes.
What have you? Normal pitfalls of marriage. Y'all do a good job of what I would call maintenance. What does that look like for y'all?
Yeah. It started off real messy, of
Oh,
course.
yeah.
Well, how could it not? But here we are almost a year and a half ish later.
From getting
And
back together.
from getting back together,
Yeah.
yes. And the Lord really has been so faithful in doing the hard things right at first. And like I said, that first summer was messy. It was good, but it was hard. Because I don't know that I was fully prepared for like how often I would feel triggered being back in relationship with him. And so anyways, a lot of the past year and a half has really been just recognizing those dysfunctional patterns that we always had to some
That
extent,
everyone has.
that everyone has.
Yeah.
I
mean, they change from story to
for
story,
sure,
but everybody's
for
got
sure,
stuff.
everyone has stuff. And so, a lot of it for us now is just recognizing it's for me. This has been one of the biggest things, and I don't do this well all the time. Still a human being. But one of the biggest things for me is number one, to try my best not to react immediately, or like for me, one of my biggest lessons has been like I go to the Lord first. Because I know the Lord will fight for me or he'll correct me.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's recognizing when we're operating from those default old patterns, especially, again, for me personally, just recognizing, hey, you're grasping for control here. Back up, calm down,
Yeah.
But it's, when we hit a spot or we hit something that it's like, okay, we recognize this is coming from some old places or old things. But we can't quite figure out like, how do we navigate this? What do we do from here? Or what, whatever. A lot of times that still looks like counseling. Like, I mean, we don't go regularly anymore. But it's when we feel like we need to.
Yeah.
Or we feel like we've hit a bump or we've hit like a wall and it's like, I don't really know how to get through this. We
I
go
love
to counseling.
that you're saying that, because like getting like the behind the scenes of y'all's lives, and we don't know every detail, and we don't need every detail, but like we do see the behind the scenes more than this podcast. And like for y'all, like I just want to say, like, not that it can't be a new crisis, not that it can't be a new argument or whatever, or a heated thing, because absolutely
Yeah.
go to counseling for maintenance for that. But I also see y'all just level headed be like, we honestly don't know. Like
Yeah.
we would like to know. Like
Yeah.
it's not all like when you say we hit a wall, it's not always this heated thing. It's
No.
like, yeah, like this is an old pattern that we danced around for a while and now it's come back up. So we just kind of want to go
Yeah.
work through it. Like there's just this like I don't want to say relaxed stance, but sort of because it's not so emotionally charged because it's like we know where we are and
Yeah.
we're not on both sides of this.
Yeah.
We're standing on the same side of
Yeah.
this, staring at this issue of how do we pick this up together well?
Yeah.
And like it's just different. It's different.
It is. It is. And I mean, I will forever be an advocate. Again, like we've said earlier, like it is not a replacement and it should not be a replacement for the Lord, but like
Yeah.
I will forever be an advocate for counseling for
And it's-
yourself and for your marriage.
And it's
even
not
if you're
in your life because you pray
Yeah.
about things and it's like for that 1 out of 10
yes.
that like we don't know after praying, now
Yeah.
we go.
Yes. And it's just like finding a good counselor that is a Christian, biblical, like just a faith-based counselor who like brings that to the table. Like
Mhm.
if we're calling ourselves a Christian counselor, but we're not bringing that to the table,
Mhm.
look elsewhere. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
that's my hot
yeah,
take on
I
it.
think that's
Because
fair.
like, if they're not bringing that into the equation,
Mhm.
you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because all of the things that we face at the heart are spiritual issues.
Mhm.
It's because we are fallen people. So, anyways,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's
Okay. The second thing
Yeah.
is tell us where you are now.
yeah. We can end on a high note.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what's been kind of wild just in the past few months was just finding out we were pregnant with baby number 3.
Yeah.
And
after 2 seasons, like a long season of infertility, and then
yeah, I
another,
mean,
I would
it
say
wasn't
long.
Yeah, it was
season.
long.
Like just this
Yes.
happy
So yeah,
miracle.
absolutely a miracle. And this is just one of those things where this may be the part of this whole thing because it's so fresh that like I don't know that I can talk about this without being emotional. Now that I feel like a human being again,
You can be emotional.
and can actually appreciate and really like sit in this.
Yeah.
Is just this baby. It's just redemption in so many ways, and like God's redemption all over this. Because we were on the fence. I say I was on the fence. Collin would have been fine either way, but he was very much like, that's your call. Like I'm not.
I believe one of our date nights this summer was y'all being like, should we have it? Like,
yes.
Oh, over apps? Okay, let's go here. We're not even gonna wait for the main course.
No, not at all. I was like, all right, this is where we're at, guys. Okay. And I won't go into all the ins and outs of that, but just very much like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. And this like came about, I looked back in one of my journals, like the very last entry in the journal that was from like the year of that shall not be named. One of the things that I wrote in there was, God, I don't want to decide. Like, I don't want to make a choice. Like, I need you to decide this for me.
Mhm.
And like for someone who likes to be in control, that's huge. Like, and so honestly, that's where I was with this whole decision was like, hey God, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Mhm.
And I was like, you gonna have to make it known.
Yeah.
What you want here.
Mhm.
Because I'm not getting any younger. I mean, I'm not like old by any stretch of the imagination, but I am advanced maternal age now. So, anyways, and he made it known.
Yeah.
He made it known real fast.
Yeah.
Not our experience ever
Yes.
in our lives. It was very quick and
Yeah.
very much like, I think I prayed that prayer
Mhm.
and like within a week's time or 2 weeks time, found out I was pregnant. And I was like, whoa, so you can do it.
Yeah. Well, and like you were so sick this time.
Oh my gosh.
That for anyone who listened to
Oh,
part
yeah.
one and knew the bold prayers, I was praying you were like,
Yes.
take it back.
I said,
like,
you
I can't.
take
It's out there.
that twin
I
prayer
can't
back.
take the twin prayer.
And I mean, we were legitimate. I'm not gonna lie. We obviously the Lord is good. And if we had twins,
And it would have been great.
It would have been fantastic. I would have mourned for a minute.
Immeasurably more.
Okay, immeasurably
than we could
more.
ask or think.
Yes. More than I would have asked or thought. But that was like a thing. I mean, we were kind of panicked for a minute. And I was like, oh gosh, like we might really. It is just one. But the thing that is the coolest to me that like is probably not gonna like ever fully just this is just one of those things where like I think about this and I'm like, Lord, you didn't have to do that, but you are so kind. But my due date is like within 3 days. It's in March, which is a month that I have come to hate.
Yeah.
And so just some of those little details that like nobody else would probably even like when someone hears the due date, they don't know. They don't, of course they don't, but like it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And just for the Lord to redeem even that, it feels like, you didn't have to do that. Like, but for me, like that means a lot. And that's really significant just in our story. Really just all around. I mean, even just with infertility, now this experience being like, what in the world? You know? Yeah. And so just, I think I find myself right now just sitting in this place of like, hey, God, I learned that you were good, even when nothing around me was good. And I learned that then, and it feels refreshing to sit here 2.5 years later and just the joy to feel like you really are good. You're good in the good. You're good in the bad. And to really know what that means. Right. And to understand that. I'll need that reminder again at some point in my life. But like, just sitting in a place of in awe of his goodness and his kindness. So that's where we are.
So good. So exciting. Wow. Thank you so much for being willing and sharing.
Yeah.
I hope you don't have any share's remorse.
I hope not.
It was great.
I hope not.
So, so good.
Well,
standing ovation.
No, I don't know about that, but I do hope. I don't hope. I know the Lord will use this however he sees fit. Yeah. And not because of anything that we've said, but because he is who he is. So, yeah. So, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Thank y'all so much for listening in this week. I know it was long, but if you've listened this far, then you needed every minute of it. And thank you so much for listening in. And we're praying for you, for whoever needed parts of this episode, and just in the hard, but also in the beauty and the redemption all around. And so we thank you so much for listening in, and we'll see you next week on the Saltworks.
This is my story. This is your story.